What's up, Giants fans? Welcome back to Giants Latest. Day one of training camp is in the books. I was there. This is what you need to know. I'm going to be at all the weekday training camp practices, so make sure you subscribe to stay up to date on all things Giants, especially training camp edition. So let's go ahead and get right into it. I want to start with the offense. So the number one thing you need to know is this. We've got good news on Andrew Thomas. Yes, he was added to the PUP list, but Joe Schoen and Brian Daboll spoke to the media before practice today, and they said that he is likely to be ready for week one. So it looks like he's going to get moved to the active PUP list, which means that he should be ready to go for week one. If he was on the reserve PUP list, because there are two different kinds, then it's likely that he wouldn't be ready to go for week one, and he would have, I believe, until week 6 to be activated. So we've got good news there. I think the plan for Andrew Thomas at this point is that he's not going to play in training camp, and maybe they'll start ramping him up and give him some snaps during preseason. So I think that's going to be the move. So with that being said, James Hudson was getting most of the reps at left tackle today. Now, from where I was, it was kind of hard to really get a good idea of how he was doing against Burns, Carter, and Thibodeau. I will have more on that tomorrow. And look, they don't have pads on, so they're not tackling. So it's mostly just kind of like hands up, blocking a little bit, but it's not like a full practice where they're tackling and doing stuff like that. So the pads come on next week. So that I think will take things up a notch, and we'll have a little bit more info there. So, it ends up being kind of good news on Andrew Thomas. Next up, let's talk about Malik Neighbors, because he was looking like the Malik Neighbors we all know and love. He dealt with turf toe this spring, so he basically didn't practice at all. But Daboll said today he's healthy, good to go, and he was healthy, all right. He caught 3 touchdowns from Russell Wilson and overall had a great day. So he's Malik Neighbors. I don't think anyone is worried about him. The only thing to worry about is this foot injury. But it sounds, like I said, like he's good to go and there's no issues there. And he looked like he was not slowing down. There were no issues. Like, he was good to go. So that's great news. From an offensive perspective, it is mostly a passing camp, so we didn't really get to see a ton of running. I saw Tyrone Tracy catch the ball a little bit in the backfield. I saw what's his name? Turbo Miller was involved a little bit, not so much with the ones, but I did get to see him a bit. Scattaboo, Darius Alexander, John Runyon, like guys who had injuries this spring were all good to go. So the only one really was Andrew Thomas and Eric Gray, who was on the PUP list, but I don't really think anyone's worried about him. So we have to talk about the elephant in the room, which is Jackson Dart, because if you have been on social media by now, you have seen the one clip of his pick six. This is what you need to know about Jackson Dart. He's going to make mistakes. And what Daboll said is the biggest thing that they're looking for when it comes to the young guys throughout the spring and the summer is this. They're going to make mistakes. Number one, how do they deal with them? And number two, do they fix them, or are they making the same mistake over and over again? And Daboll said, if they continue to make the same mistake over and over again, we can't put them out there. So Jackson Dart throws a pick six today. Does he do it tomorrow? Let's hope not. Does he do it again on Friday? So these are the things that, like, no one cares except for everyone else who's going to be like, oh, Jackson Dart sucks, he threw a pick six. It's day one of camp. You know who else didn't look that great in camp? Russell Wilson, Jameis Winston. The offense as a whole was not amazing. There were a lot of not great throws from the quarterbacks. There were some drops from the wide receivers, and the running backs, were not really involved a ton because, like I said, it's more of a passing camp. So let's take everything with a grain of salt. And if it becomes a pattern, that's when it's concerning. If Russell Wilson continues to overthrow wide receivers and continues to look a little shaky out there, and Jackson Dart continues to throw pick sixes to random corners, then yes, then we can start to be concerned. But until then, it's not something to worry about. It's day one of practice. These things are going to happen. So the player was Nick Jones, who was a corner that seems to have walked in off the street, because I had never heard of him until today. Had to look up his number. And he was out there with the twos. Jackson Dart was getting reps with the twos at this point. But guess what? Jackson Dart also turned it around and threw a touchdown to Theo Johnson. So, he didn't throw back-to-back pick sixes and things like that. There were no other interceptions. So let's, take a breather. Jameis Winston also got some reps out there with the twos and with the threes, and he looked pretty good, not great. Also had some not great throws. He was running a lot. And then he did throw a touchdown to little Jordan Humphrey. So, the offense, up and down. Some nice touchdowns, especially to Malik Neighbors, and then some, a pick six that was not great. So let's see how they develop from here and how they continue on, because, again, it's day one and we're not going to freak out, okay? Let's move along to the defense. Guys, Abdul Carter. One thing that I really like about a lot of these guys is they are very excited to be here. And I know there was this whole narrative last year of no one wants to play with the Giants and the Giants can't sign anyone because no one wants to come here. That's a lie. It is a bold-faced lie. Abdul Carter, the second he comes walking around, starts skipping, waving his hands up. He's getting cheers from everyone. Thrilled, absolutely thrilled to be here. If you follow me on Instagram at New York Giants Fangirl, you saw it because I posted it on my stories. Dexter Lawrence, super excited, happy to be out on the field. Malik Neighbors, same thing, revving up the crowd. They are excited to be here, and the defense alone looks great. Kayvon definitely bulked up in the upper body. He looks like, I kind of forgot how big he is, but then like seeing him in person, like he definitely has a bigger stature. And I don't know if you guys saw this video of him, but he worked with a wrestling coach this offseason because he really wanted to focus on improving his tackling skills so he could finish sacks. And I have to say, like, I've given Kayvon a lot of crap, and to be fair, he has deserved some, if not all of it. But I really like to see this, and I think drafting Abdul Carter was enough to light a little fire under his butt and say, you better get your shit together. So I like that he's taking the steps this offseason. And look, there's no tackling, so I didn't get to see any of it in person, whether or not it's actually helped him. Time will tell, right, as to whether or not they did that. Someone asked if I got to see all three of the pass rushers on the field at the same time. And I did get to see it a little bit from where I was standing. It was kind of hard to see. So tomorrow I'm going to have more updates on that. And that's something that I'm going to focus on is what does the defense really look like? How many guys are out there? Is it the three pass rushers? Are they getting multiple snaps back to back? One thing I did see is that obviously Dexter Lawrence is the starter, but next to him, Roy Robertson Harris got some good reps there. Darius Alexander, who was the other? And Chauncey Golston. So a lot of these guys are getting into a big rotation there with the defensive line. Now, the one thing I really want to talk about in regards to the defense is the cornerback 2 rotation, because I know we talked about this and it was kind of like, is it or is it not really going to be a battle for cornerback 2? It was a battle, let me tell you. Tay Banks was not getting all the reps with the ones. It was between him and Cordell Flott. Paulson Adebo, all the snaps with the ones. Drew Phillips, all the snaps with the ones. Javon Holland, Newbin, like all of the starters got their reps. Tay Banks' reps were split on the outside with Cordell Flott. Now, I don't know if that makes anyone feel better or worse about the cornerback situation, but I will say that I think it's a good thing. I think it's good that there's extra competition there. And I was just listening to Dexter Lawrence talk to the media after practice, and one thing that I thought was really interesting is that he was asked about being a leader because he's one of the guys who now has been here the longest and a veteran and is vocal and things like that. And he said, you know, it's not just me. Something that I've really noticed this year, there are other guys who are more vocal. Tay Banks and Cordell Flott are 2 of them. 2 guys that he mentioned by name that are a lot more vocal during practices. So I think that Tay Banks has really taken things seriously this year. I am happy about that. And I'd like to see that there's a rotation there because I have said this before, every position probably needs to be a competition outside of like Dexter Lawrence and Andrew Thomas and like maybe Russell Wilson and Malik Neighbors. Like, you need to put the best players out there and let them battle it out and may the best player win, because this team is not good enough for you to say every player that we picked is going to be the starter, no ifs, ands, or buts. And Dable said Russell Wilson is our starter, but there is a quarterback competition. More so for the 2 is, I think, what he meant. I don't see any scenario where anyone is beating out Russ Wilson for the starting role, at least not for week 1. We'll see how things go. But I like that. I like that there's a competition there. Tay Banks had some great plays today. One of them was a really nice pass breakup on Malik Neighbors, but he's still doing Tay Banks things, which is that he's getting a hand on the ball and he's not turning his head around. It's just like, can you just please turn your head around and maybe you'll get an interception like once? Would be really nice. I think I'm giving up hope on him being able to do that because we're going into year 3 and he's never successfully done it and he's not doing it now in day 1 of camp. So I hope he proves me wrong. I really do. But that's one of the biggest issues that I have with him as a corner. And I know we probably all have a lot of issues with Tay Banks. But I will say this. He goes stride for Neighbors. It's a really good practice for him to go up against someone like that. It's probably more realistic that he's not going to be doing that during games. He's not going to be going up against the wide receiver one, but it's really good practice, and I think it's going to make him a better corner, and maybe it'll make him enough to be the starter. So that covers it about for the defense. Let's quickly touch on special teams. There's not a lot to note here. Graham Gano is healthy. He's good to go and was out there kicking. Jude McAdamney was also out there. Jamie Gillen. Those guys are all fine. They did say, the special teams coach said that there is going to be, a competition, but is there? I don't know. Probably not. Jamie Gillen is likely to be the punter, and Graham Gano is probably going to be the kicker. But the last thing I want to talk about with special teams is this. Jalen Hyatt was out there with the returners, and so was Tyrone Tracy. So it was the normal guys like Amir Smith-Marset and Turbo, who are usually the guys who do returns. Today they had Jalen Hyatt out there. And I will say, I really like that, because if he is not going to be a major contributor on offense and he's not going to get a ton of reps every game, utilize the fact that he is fast. That's one of the best things that Jalen Hyatt has, one of his most important skill sets. So use it to your advantage and use him as a returner. So I'm on board with that. I actually think it's a great idea. So he looked pretty good out there, was able to hold on to the ball some of the snaps that I saw him get. So, I'm excited to see that continue and something to watch for the next few days throughout practice. But I will be back tomorrow reporting with more updates from day 2, so stay tuned.